Well, hi class. I hope you had a good first week, not only with this class, but with all your classes. You're off to a really good start this semester. In today's lecture, I'm just going to spend some time talking about some delivery techniques that you can utilize when you give your first speech presentation in this class. That'll be the introductory video that's due at the end of this week. And last week in the lecture, I talked about that opening presentation, the introductory video, and especially the things that you want to make sure you include as far as the content in that presentation. And the big part of that assignment is you want to make sure that you clearly articulate your 3 goals for this class, for this semester. What are 3 things that you want to accomplish specifically in this public speaking class? And so today what I'd like to do is just to spend some time talking about the delivery or the presentation techniques that you would want to utilize as you're getting ready to deliver your first speech in this introduction to public speaking class. And if you want to just kind of jump ahead, if you go to module number 6, that's the week 6 module on the speech delivery, and then look at the page specifically on public speaking techniques and delivery techniques, look at that page. That'll kind of give you an overview of the delivery techniques that we're going to work on this semester, but certainly it wouldn't hurt to take a look at those, kind of have an idea on how you might start working on each of those techniques. But what I want to do today is I want to focus on some of the lesser public speaking techniques, but also very important, and they're in the category that I call speak like a pro. These are things that you can do that are really going to make you stand out as a speaker. And so one of the first things that you want to do when you speak like a pro is you want to make sure that anytime you're giving a speech or a presentation, the first words out of your mouth, the very first phrase that you say in your speech is your set opening line. Now we'll learn in a little bit, this is what we call an attention getter. So you always want to begin a speech with an attention getter. But for the introductory speech, we haven't got that far yet. So it may be that your opening line is, well, hi, my name's Greg, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. Cool. Nice, easy way to begin the presentation. But you want to make sure that you always begin the presentation with your set opening line. Conversely, you never want to begin a speech with any kind of disclaimer. And this is a common mistake that many speakers make. And so when they first get up to speak, instead of beginning with their set opening, you might get oh gosh, I'm not feeling well today and I've got a little bit of a cold. You can probably tell, right? So please bear with me as I try to work through my speech because of this cold. Or you might get, oh, I didn't have time to practice my speech, so it's probably not going to be very good. But anyway, let me go ahead and start. Or I'm just real nervous. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through my speech, so please just bear with me. Look, if you're going to begin your speech like that, and it's what I call beginning a speech with a disclaimer, you're essentially giving the audience an excuse as to why they shouldn't expect that much from your speech. Why not go all out? Why not just get a big poster board and write on that poster board, my speech will suck, and just hold that up in front of the camera as you begin your speech? Because that's exactly what you're doing. You're telling the audience, don't expect much from my speech because I'm sick and my speech is going to suck. Because I didn't practice and my speech is going to suck. Or because I'm nervous and my speech is going to suck. Rather, why not just let the audience figure it out on their own? So I don't care if you're not feeling well. I don't care if you're nervous. I don't care even if you didn't have time to practice. Don't begin your speech by telling the audience that. Don't begin your speech with an excuse to just lower the expectations of the audience. Let them figure it out on their own, because most of the time they're not going to notice, right? You don't tell the audience you're sick. Well, that's not in their head. They're going to be listening to you give the presentation. So they may notice it, they may not, but don't begin your speech by telling the audience that. So never, ever, ever begin a speech with any kind of disclaimer. Always begin with your set opening line. And then too, a couple other things as far as making sure that you get your speech off to a good start. I know some students, especially when they haven't gone through, okay, the steps of speech preparation and learning how to put an outline together and all that, you just, okay, I've got my speech written. Okay, now let me hit record and go ahead and record it. But then what happens if you don't spend any time practicing your speech, you just write it. Now you're going to try to record the delivery, probably not going to get through it on the first take. Probably not going to get through it on the second take. And so what happens, you keep recording and re-recording, but usually when you get into that cycle, it doesn't get better. It typically gets worse. You get frustrated. Now you're tired. And so you're better off, once you have your speech written, once you know what it is that you're going to say, take the next couple days and just practice your speech out loud a couple times each day. Ideally, if you want to do really well on your opening introductory speech, I would want my speech written by today. I would want to know exactly what I'm going to say by today. It's Monday. I don't have to submit it until the end of the week. And then I'm going to take the next couple days, and I'm just going to take about 20 minutes tomorrow, 20 minutes the next day, 20 minutes after that each day, and I'm just going to say my speech out loud once, twice, 3 times. And if you just practice your speech out loud 3 times a day, a couple days before the presentation, you're going to have that speech down. And more importantly, because you're saying the speech out loud when you practice, that helps you to work out the phrasing. A lot of times you have something written, but then when you go to say it for the first time, it's a little clunky, the phrasing's a little choppy. And so you might want to rework it, kind of work on the phrasing, smooth it out, change a couple words around, get it so it sounds the way that you like it. And all that can be worked out through your practice. So always practice your speeches out loud, because you're not only learning the information that you're going to present, you're learning how to say it. So you present the information in a way that it has the most impact on the audience. And so think about things like vocal variety, maybe slowing down a phrase, softening your tone to have more of an impact. So play around with the vocal variety, play around with the pausing, play around with the phrasing, get comfortable with the wording so you can deliver your speech smoothly. And you'll find if you practice your speech out loud a couple days before you submit it, now when you go ahead and hit record, you're probably going to get through the speech in 1 take, second take, probably not going to take more than 3. And I don't mind if for the first couple speeches that maybe you have 2 or 3 segments, no more than 3, right? I don't want a line, then you cut, then you say the next line and paste that together. You want to try to get through the entire speech in 1 take, no more than 3 takes if you're going to kind of edit it together. But you'll do way better with the recording if you spend a couple days practicing your speech out loud, getting familiar with the information before you record it. And then when it's time to record the speech, once you hit record, I want you just in your head to go 1001, 1002, then make sure you're focused right on the camera and then deliver that opening line. Sometimes beginning speakers, especially when we're using this format where you're recording your speech and then posting it, you hit record, but then if you start right into that opening line, sometimes it cuts off the first word or two. So you want to make sure that after you hit record, take a second or 2 to look into that camera, get set, and then first words that we should hear are your set opening words to the presentation. And then conversely, when you get to the end of the speech, the last word that you say in the speech should be the last line of the speech. So don't add on a, well, thank you, I hope you liked the presentation. No, just end with the last line and then hold your gaze on the camera for another second and then just go ahead and pretend that you can hear the applause from the audience, because they're the ones who should be thanking you for a job well done. I've never understood why so many speakers at the end of the presentation, they thank the audience. They're doing all the work, right? The audience should be doing the applauding. They should be doing the thanking, because the speaker is the one doing the presenting. So when you end your speech, end with the set last line of the speech. And then the trick is to create a sense of finality so the audience also knows it's the last line of the speech. Just kind of slow your rate down, soften your tone, and throw in a few extra pauses as you get to that very last line. That'll help create that sense of finality so the audience knows that you're done as you deliver that last line. So in terms of your presentation, you want to make sure that you practice your speech a couple days in advance before you record it. And then when you record it, you want to make sure that you establish your presence as a speaker. You don't begin with any disclaimers. You begin with your set opening line. You take a second to fix your eye contact right on that camera. And then when you get to the end of the speech, you want to end with the last line so that speech has a strong sense of finality. And then just a couple other things. Just make sure that you're centered in the frame. You don't want to have too much headroom up here. Make sure that you're nice and centered in the camera frame. And then if you can remember, when you're delivering your speech, try to make sure that you just keep your hands away from your face. That creates a distraction. It's okay to gesture, but you always want your gestures to be below your shoulders. And remember, we talked about this last week. If you're going to gesture, just move your camera back just a little bit so we see a little bit more of that upper torso. And then that way you've got some room to gesture in here. Okay? All right. Let's have a good week. I am really looking forward to hearing all of your speeches. And remember, too, once you submit your speech, go ahead and watch each of your classmates' videos and tell them something good about their presentation as well. All right, we'll see you next week. Have a good week.